Every few years, a group of games, or sometimes an individual game, comes around and kind of changes the perception of the gaming community when it comes to what we think makes a good or bad video game. It can be hard to pinpoint which games in particular caused the change, but the thing that's certain is that the change does happen in one way or another. Sometimes it's the whole world suddenly deciding that first-person shooters are the best things ever made. Sometimes it's the entire community deciding that cutscenes are a bad thing. Most of these massive shifts happened at times when I wasn't into gaming as much as I am now, but luckily I've been able to catch one that happened pretty recently. No one knows whether it was the gazillionth open world sandbox game that came along at the start of the 8th generation, or the catastrophe that was No Man's Sky's marketing campaign, but for whatever reason, the concept of scale in a video game is not nearly as much as a selling point as it was a few years ago. In fact, when it comes to any video games that tout themselves as being open world, you will almost undoubtedly see the words "looks empty" in a comment section or on a forum. On one hand, I'm happy to see that some people aren't being strung along anymore just because a game looks big. On the other hand, I'm worried that people may be taking the meaning of empty a little too literal, because now I'm starting to see the term brought up in instances that I would never dream of using it. Like, I heard a few people saying that Mario Odyssey looked empty before launch. Mario Odyssey looked empty before launch, especially when it came to footage of the Cascade Kingdom. It's at this point that I started to realize people's definition of what makes an empty game is wildly different than my own. So I thought I'd go over my interpretation of the word and how I characterize a game that I would call empty. Let's get something clear right from the get-go. Empty space, actual physical empty space in a video game, is not a bad thing. If it was, Shadow of the Colossus would be the worst game of all time, but it's not. It's a masterpiece. Because it's not about how much space there is, it's about what you do in that space and for how long. What kind of opportunities for play does the mechanics provide in that particular environment? Here's an example. Pick a game, just a random game, any one. Now imagine a room, a completely empty room. Nothing in it but 4 walls, a floor, and a roof, and maybe a light source, I don't know. Now, thinking about the mechanics of your game, and whatever items that your video game character might be carrying, what kind of opportunities for play can arise in this empty room? Anything you can think of that you could play around with. You're not going to be able to do much, but depending on what kind of game you chose, your answer is going to vary greatly. If you chose some sort of JRPG, there's a good chance that you can't do anything else but walk around. But if you chose a game like Mario Sunshine, there's a fair amount that you could do. Most of that would probably include using the walls to wall jump into something else. If you chose CSGO, you could write something on the wall with your bullets. If you chose Animal Crossing, you could leave the game for a while, come back, and there'd be a good chance that your room would be filled with cockroaches that you would probably want to crush. Well, that's a very odd example, but the significance of the same empty room varies greatly depending on what game it is. The significance of any environment varies greatly depending on what game it is. While a vast field in one game may provide next to no changes in gameplay, a vast field in another might be filled with a whole wealth of things to interact with. In Mario Odyssey's case, that becomes pretty much everything. It's very, very difficult to make a 3D Mario game feel empty because so much time is put into Mario's moveset and how he interacts with the world around him. The whole point of a good 3D platformer is to make the environment feel like a playground. The mechanics are designed with the idea that every object, every obstacle, every element changes the way Mario goes about progressing in the level. As a result, a damn slope changes the way you play the game. As soon as they showed some of the movesets, it became very unlikely that it was going to suffer from feeling empty. As soon as they showed the hat mechanic, it became damn near impossible. Not only is Mario himself affected greatly by the environment around him, but now he can interact with that same environment in a multitude of different ways depending on who or what he captures. Now, obviously, this level of interactivity with the environment isn't very common for open-ended games, or any games for that matter. Odyssey is the outlier, but there are other ways a game can escape from feeling empty in a negative way, even if it's actually pretty damn empty, as well as ways a game can feel empty even if it's not that empty at all. So maybe join me for the part 2 of the video series, I guess. It's not really a series. I just thought I split it up into extra parts, and I just thought that maybe that would be a good idea.